All right, back to the show. Three, two, one. Welcome to the Monday edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 125, and we're going to bring you news about the broken communion. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. And today, September 29, 2014.
All right, welcome to the Monday show. We're going to talk about the broken Anglican Communion, which is weird because last week on Monday we talked about the soul of the Anglican Communion and can it be saved? Well, we're not going to give you a lot of hope after this episode. We're going to talk about Lambeth 2018, and there are rumors floating around the internet and through some press conferences we've read about that there's no schedule yet for 2018. First, Catherine Jefferts Schori was giving a press conference in Taiwan at the House of Bishops meeting, and one of the bishops said, I'm looking here at the numbers. I don't see any of us saving money for Lambeth 2018. And she says, well, I've spoken with the Lambeth, and they've not scheduled it yet, and we don't know what's happening. What's going on, George?
Catherine Jefferts Schori told Bishop Prince Singh, Bishop Rochester, New York, that Justin Welby has not begun work on the next Lambeth conference. It's been indefinitely postponed. And what she reported was that Justin Welby wants to visit all the primates first, and he wants to hold a successful primates meeting, and then he'll think about holding a Lambeth conference because he doesn't want to hold a conference and have nobody show up. These are expensive dues. And, Mrs. Welby's going to be slicing sandwiches for a few days ahead of time. And, just getting the teacups out. Lambeth 2008 was a fiasco, any way you look at it. A financial fiasco. Do you remember, Kevin, somebody forgot to tell them, we're renting this tent for $250,000 or pounds, and it's not in our budget. And then there was the fiasco that the Africans, the majority of them didn't show up. And then those that were there, what did they talk about? Nothing. Well, nothing of any consequence.
It was Indaba. And Lambeth 2008 proved that Indaba doesn't work. They said, well, we're going to do Indaba 10 times as hard when we get to the primates meeting in Ireland. And once again, it was proof because nobody showed. And if you have a party and nobody shows, it shows that they're not interested in being in communion with you. And the Archbishop of Canterbury really has three roles. Go around the world visiting the provinces and talk to the archbishops, set a conference for the primates meeting and invite them to meet and talk about the mind of the communion, and also have a Lambeth conference where you bring in the clergy and laity and talk about the mind of communion. That's basically your only role, and it's not working.
And we need to remember that the run-up to Lambeth is just as important, if not more important, than the actual conference itself. Because in the months, and in fact years ahead of Lambeth, people sort of argue out their positions. They sort of prepare for discussion of set issues. The bishops in 1998, for instance, were given discussion papers about the issues. 2008, they were basically given homework. They weren't treated as adults, if you will, as equal members of a college of bishops, but as sort of rather dim graduate students. 2018, they've already basically said that we're not going to have a women's conference, we're not going to have a wives' conference, because it's very expensive and it's logistically difficult to add another 800 to 1,000 people to a gathering and keep them busy for 2 weeks in a meaningful way, and it costs a fortune. So we're going to drop that. So what we have heard is that if they're going to have a conference, they want to focus on the issues. But they need the people to show up. And right now, Justin Welby does not build up the capital, the personal capital, to get the other Anglicans who are disaffected to come to his party.
Well, it's interesting because he is flying around the communion right now trying to garner the support. He's meeting in provinces and with archbishops around the world. We were in Kenya when he stopped in at the at the GAFCON conference and said hi to Eliud Wabakula. Now, in as such, I don't see these archbishops who he's met with say, hey, wow, I was wrong. This communion thing looks like a go. I'm being convinced by Justin Welby that I should be showing up for the Primates meetings and for Lambeth. We're not hearing any of that, George.
No, and to be perfectly frank, Justin Welby can't deliver anything to the overseas primates except soothing words at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The Church of England is in such precarious state right now. We had a bishop, Alan Wilson, the Bishop of Buckingham. That's one of the suffragan sees in the Diocese of Oxford. He talked to the Daily Telegraph over the weekend, and he's written a book where he supports gay marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and he says, 12 of my fellow dioceses, 12 of my fellow bishops are gay, and they're just too chicken to come out and tell the world that they're gay. So basically, here's a bishop of the Church of England who's threatening to out his fellow bishops. Now, this is something the gay activists have threatened to do. I can remember this going back to the mid-90s, that they would threaten to out all the gay bishops in the Church of England. After a while, it got a little dull waiting for it to happen. Now we have a bishop threatening to do it unless the Church of England goes along with his views on homosexuality.
Which is...
If Justin Welby can't organize his own house,
Well,
why would the African primates, for instance, want to get involved?
and to show how broken their house is, globally and nationally here in America, Gallup and Pew did a poll asking exactly what the percentage rate of homosexual attracted people are. And it came to 1.72%. So if you do the math, the House of Bishops in the Church of England have a 5 times same-sex attraction rate than the national and international populace. It's
and
broken.
There are no real evangelicals in the House of Bishops of the Church of England. And that's where the growth and the strength of the church lies at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the money comes from. The alpha people, and I can go on and list these thriving, productive, biblically spirit-filled churches. They have no bishops like them in the House of Bishops.
Well, I got in a lot of trouble at Lambeth 2008 because for the title sequence I made for Anglican TV, it said the last Lambeth, and I had a nice direct flow into Canterbury Cathedral, showing Rowan Williams presiding over some meeting there. And that's the reality. I believe that there will not be another Lambeth, as we saw Lambeth before, in any way, shape, or form, because at this current point, the Anglican Communion is torn. The fabric is torn, and it does not exist. There's no accountability, and there's just people who have money flying around saying, please join me. And that's not how the communion is designed, George.
Kevin, you're absolutely right. You really are annoying at times because you're right on so many levels. It's hard. I'm sure people say, George, you're just a yes man. You always agree with Kevin. But folks, he's right. 2008, he predicted this is the last show. You're absolutely right. There's no point to a lot of this jet setting around, be they liberals or conservatives. I mean, we've had our fill of meetings. We actually need now movement on the ground to put into in other words, we have the Jerusalem Declaration. We really don't need much more than that. Now we need the churches who've adopted it to live it out, to encourage it, to develop the links on a grassroots level. Eliud Wabakula just hosted I think it was the Divine Conference, the Divine Kingdom Conference in Nairobi, and where they had people come over from the Chicago area who are affiliated with the ACNA, and they had deliberate links between Chicago church planners, Alan Hawkins, I believe, of the ACNA led that delegation, with Kenyan churches. Here is the Jerusalem Declaration being lived out. Here is really the true work, the front lines of Anglicanism right now on an international scale. Meetings of bishops and primates, frankly, they're fun to go to, but they're really passé. The true work of the church is building the kingdom, and there are people doing it right now. And they don't really need another Lambeth to make